Hello and welcome to Beyond the Buyer. This week I'm delighted to have a returning guest in Matt Jones. Matt Jones is founder and CEO of Rebel Lion Advertising. He is spearheading a very ambitious acquisition journey to become the largest independent agency group in the UK. This is going to be the second time that he's delivered on this aim, having sold S3 Advertising in a management buyout in 2019. Matt is a multi-award winning entrepreneur, having won several national awards for both himself and his businesses, including the super prestigious Great British Entrepreneur of the Year award for the creative industry in 2017, 2018 and 2019. He's also won a whole host of industry awards and has secured fellowships with the Chartered Institute of Marketing and the Royal Society of Arts. This time on the show, Matt is back and he is talking to us about his podcast. So I wanted to chat to Matt about his thinking behind the show, why he's doing it, and some other key things that he is doing right now to raise his profile. So let's get stuck in. Matt Jones, great to have you back on the show. If anyone missed out last time, you were talking about your experience of being on Dragon's Den, so I'll make sure that we pop a link to that episode in the show notes. Now, this time, we're talking about the mechanics of growing your business and therefore your profile, and what some of the pros and cons have been for you with this. This is great timing also, as you actually have your own podcast. So let's start off with you telling us a bit about your podcast and what you're going to be covering.
Absolutely. Well, it's great to be back, Sophie. So thanks for having me on. Behind the Roar is a podcast that is going to give not just fleeting entrepreneurs or founders or business owners an insight to what actually goes on behind those closed doors, behind the entrepreneur, but also it's going to give lots of individuals insights into what it takes to be an entrepreneur, to be a business owner. So yeah, that's why we're kind of launching the podcast, to give those insights, because you'll know this. Lots of times when we read online, social and entrepreneurial influencers, we see those kind of top voices on LinkedIn. And for me, I find that I have better connections with those who talk about what it takes to be in business, the sacrifices you have to make, the times when it's incredibly lonely, those big decisions you have to, those big decisions that could go one way or the other. So yeah, kind of talking about the adversity of it, the effects it has, giving people more of a real world insight. I think lots of us were told, aren't we? God, you've been so lucky. But yet what they don't see, the work that you're putting into 2-3 o'clock in the morning, the weekends you're sacrificing, the family time. You don't get lucky. Luck comes from hard work. So yeah, I want to give more insights to that. And we've got some brilliant people coming on to talk about their stories, the things you wouldn't usually read about, the news you wouldn't usually see. It won't all be glitz and glam. It's going to be about what it takes, and unashamedly, kind of getting it out there and talking about the sacrifices, the failures, as we know, a massive learning lesson. So really getting down to
so many things to unpick within that. I was listening to somebody, I can't remember who it was. I was listening to someone literally yesterday talking about the amount of hours that an entrepreneur works and how we don't clock watch, which is just as well. Otherwise, we'd probably be horrified at the kind of hours that we do. And I think that is the reality of things. This whole 4-day working week from the beach kind of thing is probably a long way off for many of us, if ever achievable. The reality is you've got to put the graft in, haven't you? You've got to put those hours in to get to that point.
You're so right. And you're absolutely spot on. We never switch off. We never clock watch. It's constantly on our minds. The smallest of decisions, the smallest of actions, am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing this to this person? Should I be invested in this area? And then also we criticize ourselves a lot. Did I really have a successful week last week, or was it just a lot of activity? What is the true fruition from this? We're constantly second-guessing our decisions. We're constantly judging ourselves, which can bring on imposter syndrome. It's something we hear about a lot, but it's something that should be highlighted.
Have you ever had imposter syndrome?
Absolutely. I am not saying I'm the most successful entrepreneur. I've had a lot of success. Of course I have. But sometimes, and from my experience, you achieve this success. And because every day we're not clock watching, as you said, and there doesn't seem to be that 9 to 5, just hours, more hours. We accumulate this massive amount of time that we've spent in business. And then when we achieve that success, selling that business, acquiring that business, achieving some of those goals and those objectives that we set out way back when we get there, it's really hard to break down how we did it and when we did it and what the actual intricacies are, because it's just so much happening at once. And when that happens, when I sold my business, I completed on the 24th of October. The 25th, I was gone because the consultancy period was a year before that. So you imagine going from being Great British Entrepreneur of the Year for a couple of years running, one of the biggest agencies outside of London, over 100 people, 25 million collective revenue, big. Then you're back in your spare bedroom. It's a really strange feeling. And that, for me, caused imposter syndrome, because I was finding it hard to put back together again all those shrewd moves, all those times in the attic, all those conversations I had, all those proposals, those budgets, those media plans, those research pieces, because there's so much. I couldn't formulate that plan back together again to remind myself how I got to the place and where I was.
I think that's a really hard time for people that scale and exit businesses if they have that gap between going into the next thing, which obviously, if you're wanting to remain within the same industry, we have all sorts of restrictions around what we can and can't do. So that can be a really challenging time. And I've often heard people that have sold businesses for stupid amounts of money get quite depressed and quite low because they lose that sense of purpose. And you and I are pretty similar around our work ethic. We work really hard. We're always thinking. So I think it's really important that anyone that is scaling a business for the first time almost thinks about that, what next, so that they don't put themselves into that position where, that could massively impact someone's mental health.
And it's so true. So when I sold my previous agency, I came out the door, went straight into another business. So I actually had no gap. And then the pandemic hit, which forced the gap. One of the things I've done recently, which I find really beneficial, is journaling. Now, journaling has been around forever, as we know. And we don't necessarily need to be writing pages and pages every day, but write down the key achievements, the highlights, those kind of synergies between what didn't work so well and what did work well to get to the next area of business, the next stage of business. So one day, if it is your goal to sell or to acquire, wherever it may be, when your exit's put there, then you can look back and think, actually, that's how I did that, and that's why I did that, which will then, when that imposter syndrome piece comes up, or when the kind of the loss of identity, you can go back and read over them and think, actually, no, this is what I did achieve, and that's how I did that. Because being an entrepreneur is about thinking on your feet. That's exactly what it is. And there's a difference between a business owner and an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is always innovating, always looking for the next area, always enterprising. They're ambitious. They're not plateauing. It's not a kind of a lifestyle business.
It's a different pace. It's a different pace.
It's a different pace. Entrepreneurs, we're not, 1,000 thoughts a day, if not more. So yeah, keep a note of them, kind of when you have those great ideas. And those ideas to the next level.
One of the things I do to kind of link to that, thinking about the imposter syndrome thing, is I have a nice things email folder. So when someone sends me a nice email, I file it off into my nice things. And when I'm having a crap day, sometimes I remember, I've got my nice things folder, and I go in and I read some of the stuff in there, and it just gives me a bit of a lift.
That is a brilliant idea. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
Absolutely.
We all need a bit of a boost sometimes.
Gosh, absolutely. I think entrepreneurs forget why they actually got into it in the first place. And hear me out on that, right? No plan ever goes to plan. How many times have you had a plan, or people listening, that have actually gone to that plan? Very, very, very rare. So what might have been our intention when launching or setting up on a new direction, that's our goal, that's our objective. When we plan for these things and they don't go to plan, that can really throw us off course. And then we forget then, and I say forget, because of the amount of new direction of things that happen in business. So, yeah, always keeping yourself accountable and knowing why you started and how you started. So making sure you stay on track with that will make a massive difference.
Totally agree. So Beyond the Bio is all about profile raising and all things profile. How do you think people in the business community in Wales would describe Matt Jones?
I think there's two camps. But before I give my answer on that, let's think about all of us as individuals for a second. So not everybody is going to agree with what you say. Not everybody is going to want to like or share or comment on the post that you put out. Not everybody will agree with your opinions or your views. And that's life in general. That is life. Not everybody likes peaches, Sophie. However, when you put that down to a personal brand and you're in a marketplace where it's fairly competitive and the stakes are high and you're a challenger, as I am, and I'm fairly opinionated, well, really opinionated, then yeah, there's two camps around me like there is around everybody. So there's the camp that value my opinions and clap when I win and support me as I do them. And then there's the other camp who potentially see the success in me that they've not put the work in for themselves to achieve. And that's what it is.
And do you think that's what it is then, that people that perhaps might use negative words to describe you or anybody else, do you think it's more of a reflection on themselves rather than you?
I think that's the case with when anybody makes any comment about anybody, it's always a reflection of themselves. Absolutely. Because let me ask you this. Have you ever known somebody more successful say anything negative about somebody less successful?
Yeah, probably not. I think there's something in people that are successful and relatively happy as well, who it just wouldn't cross their mind to do that.
No, absolutely. That's the point. So, when you say successful, I'm not necessarily referring to the fact that there's money involved or it's been because of a sale or wealth. I'm saying successful in the sense of they know what they want. They remember why they're in business. They're journaling. They're making the right moves. They're building their team. They're winning new brands. They're winning clients. They're making some noise online. People are getting to know them. This can make other people, not just in Wales or to do with me, it can make people a little bit like envious. It can happen. And it's a really sad thing as well because it can limit the progression of others because we start to worry whether or not what we're saying really people want to hear about it. When I was on Dragon's Den, I had thousands, and I mean thousands, comments online, how amazing I was and what I've done for people. And then I had about 5 or 6 negative, and I only focused on them. So it takes time and it takes a lot of being able to handle personal rejection and resilience in an individual, all of the key components to be a strong entrepreneur. To know when people lift their head above the parapet and they want to try and take shots at you, they're just one person, or the 2 or 3 people, or whatever it may be.
And what would be your top tip for dealing with that kind of attention, that negative, critical, not very nice side of business?
Yeah, so I've got lots of tips on this, and I could talk to you for ages about it. But
give me one.
It's going to affect you to start with, okay? So it's not nice when somebody says something about you or against your character, or even if it's something as soft as that, they challenge you online. They can't take you a little bit. It makes you a little bit because we do live in a soft nation right now. We do. So when somebody does take a shot, it's a bit like, wow, it's a bit jarring. So what I do, it's happened quite a lot in my time of being in business because I'm a opinionated individual who has their eyes set very much on what I want to achieve. So when it happens, you've got to think about this. If you were at a theatre or you're at the cinema or you're at a show, wherever it may be, and these people are on stage, you've got to think about what characters you want them to play. So let's say somebody writes something negative online about you. You have the choice, as you would if you're in a theatre, to decide how or not you want to take that information on board. How do you want to respond to that? So, for example, do you want to feel negative? Do you want to feel like they're taking shots at you? Do you want to feel sad? Do you want to feel nervous? Do you want to give them more power than what they actually deserve? So like being in the theatre, wherever it may be, this is what I do. I picture them in front of me, and I think about myself like giving them a script. And that script is how they're going to treat me. And it's also about how I'm going to react to it. So I decide to control my mind. I decide to control the narrative. I believe myself when somebody writes something negative, I say to myself, they must be having a bad day. Or I actually feel sorry for them. Or because it's a deflective. So yeah, think about the script and the role that you want these people to play. And it's really powerful. And I hope that makes sense. It's happened to me recently. Somebody wrote something online. I seen it flagged up. And I looked at it and I thought, how much power do I want to give this? What role do I want that character to play in my story? Are they going to be a big influence? Nah, they're not going to be. So I changed that part of that. Are they going to be able to take away my kind of happiness? No. Instead, I'm going to give gratitude to what I've got and I'm going to feel sorry for them. And that's it.
Great advice. So you want to grow your business throughout the UK, and I know that you have very firm plans on how you're going to do this. What is that going to mean for your profile?
I suppose my profile is going to grow. I'm working very hard at the moment because I believe we need to. We're founder-led entrepreneurs that run our businesses. So we have plans to acquire 5 agencies in the next 3 years. So naturally, my profile is going to grow. I'm going to stay true to who I am. I'm not going to change. I'm not going to change being the opinionated Welshman that I am. I don't always get it right and hands in the air when I don't. And that's another post. But I'm going to keep on being me. And ultimately, I'm building this around my personality and the people that join here. So I'm not necessarily worried in a sense of my profile growing. I'm looking forward to it. And I'll keep on being myself. I'll keep on being raw. I'll keep on being honest. Because after all, this agency is called Rebel Lion, and this is a rebellion. I'm sick and tired of the watered down, mediocre, trying to please everybody, because we're all too scared to voice our opinions.
Well said. Tell us about your book.
So it's going to be called From the Bedsit to the Boardroom, and it's about my life. So I grew up at home with mum and dad for a number of years, and then things that I don't want to give too much away, things that I go in kind of the wrong direction. I ended up under the care of social services, and I was, under the care of social services for quite some time. And then I was in a bedsit in Newport, and kind of as a 15-year-old man, a boy, in a bedsit under the care of social services in one of the rough kind of deprived areas of South Wales, it was a challenging time. But I made a decision in that bedsit, which kind of changed the course of where I am now. And that all started by one day being sat in a YMCA and seeing a TV commercial, an army TV commercial. And it was in that bedsit that I actually thought to myself, I could do that. I could be somebody better. And there's been lots of bumps and ups and downs along the way, but I've gone from that to selling a business for, 7 figures. And I want other individuals to be able to read about how I accomplished that by working on myself, my mindset, being able to handle rejection, being able to build resilience, basic things like how to turn up to a boardroom, what to say, when to say it, but also how to be authentic to yourself, not to be able to consume so much information you forget the character that you once were. So there's going to be lots of takeaways, lots of information in there. And it's going to be a bit gritty, but also, as I am, it's going to help people kind of make more of their lives for them.
Very much looking forward to reading that. And what are the goals for the podcast?
Goals for the podcast is very much the same, but to have on a number of people. So not just all the kind of biggest top voices, and not just that, because what we need to be hearing from is individuals like ourselves, but also individuals who have just got into business. I've been in business now 15 years, so I want to hear about the 1-year startups, the 3-year scale-ups, the 4-year second raises, and then the big brands that we hear about today. I want to bring those stories from those entrepreneurs so that everybody listening has information that can benefit them at the stages they're at. Because, we need to start talking about and understanding kind of what you do when that legal letter turns up on your desk, or when you've got that VAT bill to pay, and or the stories behind that. What do we do? So that's what it's going to be. And that's my aim, education, but also with some fun along the way.
Fab. Sounds awesome. So final question. A lot of what you are doing is linked to the eventual exit of your business in around 6 years' time. Now, you're not even going to be 50 at that point. So what is going to be next for Matt Jones?
Brilliant. Well, I have an academy right now. It's called the Resistance Academy, which helps and nurtures and gives opportunity to individuals who want to work in the creative industries a route into the workplace. So this is very much still in its early stages, but what I want to do one day is have an academy where I can help entrepreneurs and young, inspiring individuals find their route into market. And that's what I want to do. I also want to be a dragon on Dragon's Den. Replace Deborah Meaden. She got to go. So that's what I'm thinking.
Big plans. Love it. Awesome. So thanks for coming on the show again, Matt Jones. If people are listening who are not already connected to you, want to connect, where's the best place for them to find you?
Find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. We will stick a link to the podcast and also to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening. If you're serious about growing your profile, take our free profile assessment quiz to see where you're at right now and get hints and tips on how to improve your score. You'll find the link to the quiz in the show notes. If you've enjoyed the episode, it would be mint if you'd subscribe, like, and leave a review. See you next Monday.